WFRV TV Local 5, your local election headquarters. This is Newsmaker Sunday with your host, Tom Zaleski.
Good morning and welcome to Newsmaker Sunday. I'm Erin Davison filling in for Tom Zaleski. This is Labor Day weekend and it is more than just the unofficial end of summer. Here are a few facts about this holiday. Labor Day celebrates the social and economic achievements of American workers. While several states celebrated the holiday, Congress eventually passed a law setting aside the first Monday in September as Labor Day in 1884. The holiday has evolved over the years and is now celebrated by holding parades, speeches, and festivals. And joining us this morning to talk more about Labor Day is Mark Westphal, president of the Fox Valley Area Labor Council, A.F.L. C.I.O. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for the invitation. Glad to be here.
First question, what does Labor Day mean to you?
Well, Labor Day is really the day we set aside to recognize and honor the people that brought labor, organized labor to where it is today, all the things that they brought and gave us. Pay, benefits, safety on the job, those types of things. And then also to reflect forward, to know that we still have many challenges in front of us and what we need to accomplish that. And last but not least, we in our area anyway like to make it a day that we say thank you to all the workers in the area, because we wouldn't have the economy that we do here if it wouldn't be for the people who go to work every day.
Let's talk about the history of Labor Day just for a moment. It's fascinating. Tell us about the creation of unions in the 18th and 19th centuries.
Well, you got to remember, those unions were around before it was actually legal to be in unions. So we've never had to rely on politicians or laws made by politicians. It's always been the guile and the will of workers to form together for the betterment of themselves. So as you mentioned in your intro, yeah, the first beginnings of Labor Day go back to about 1882, and that's when in New York City they called it a march or a parade. Incidentally, most of the people who took part in that parade were either immigrants or first-generation Americans who were, laboring in the shops and mills at the time in the New York area. And within a few years, other cities adopted it. A few years after that, Oregon, the state of Oregon, was the first state that actually recognized Labor Day as a holiday. And then shortly after that, it became a federal holiday after about 30 states at that time had recognized Labor Day as a holiday.
And the movement was reacting to labor conditions at the time.
Well, you got to remember what you're talking about now is in the day of the robber barons, all of the big railroads, mining interests, and all those. And the only way that workers could gain any traction as far as gaining better pay, better working conditions, and safety concerns at the time was to band together in unions and try to act collectively and bargain for fair and just wages at that time. And it wasn't until the 1930s, 35, when the Wagner Act was passed, that it actually made unions a lawful thing within our federal government, and that employers had to recognize unions.
Let's talk about some of the benefits that we have today that can be traced back to the labor movement back then.
Well, whether you're in a union or not, you can probably give credit to a labor union for your current pay and benefits. Because we've always said that labor members and labor unions raise the bar for everyone else. As we've gotten better pay and better benefits, we've brought up the other people along with us. Because these companies have to obviously remain competitive. So, but even given that, the statistics are still quite compelling to be a member of a union. On average, a union member is going to earn $200 more a week than a non-union member performing roughly the same work. And they're also much more likely to have a health and benefit package, a retirement plan, paid vacation, and maybe some other sick leave or other things like that that not everyone has. So we bring the bar up for all workers in our area and the country as a whole.
Here in Northeast Wisconsin, manufacturing is the largest employer in several places. How are these workers impacting the economy of the area?
Well, yeah, Wisconsin has one of the highest percentages of manufacturing making up the economy of their state. Manufacturing is even in a higher concentration in our area from Green Bay through the Fox Valley. It's been tough, though, for the last few years for union members. We've seen a lot of things from the state level, Act 10, right to work, those things. They've impacted us. That's put more pressure on our employers, and then onto the members that work for them and their employees. But things are, hopefully we've started to turn a corner. There's been some things happening, not so much in our state, but in other parts of the country. I think you might remember earlier this spring, there was many teachers in other states who were protesting, not just so much for their pay, but that the conditions in their schools were much better as far as funding, what happened to the students. So that type of thing is happening all over the country. So we've seen an increase in union activity, and the approval ratings of unions right now are higher than they've been in the last generation. A recent study from MIT showed that now 61% of the country has a favorable approval of unions. That's up quite a bit in the last 5-6 years.
And those teacher walkouts proved to be successful in getting them more money.
Yes, they were.
Now, the Foxconn project, of course, controversial. Governor Scott Walker offering between $3 and $4 billion in tax incentives. In return, the Taiwan-based manufacturer promises 13,000 jobs to the state. Is it worth it?
Well, as taxpayers, we better hope so. But there's much more questions, I think, than answers. For one thing, the deal was the largest, not just in our state history, it's the largest in our country ever as what I'm going to call corporate welfare, to bring a company in. One of our problems, organized labor's problems with the Foxconn deal, is there were very little guarantees made on the other side, or the worker side. We were asking or hoping for a set wage amount, that wages would be at least $15 or higher. We weren't able to get that. We don't know the type of conditions that these people will be working in. And Foxconn is a multinational corporation, has some dubious reputation when it comes to their treatment of workers. So, plus the environmental impacts, where have a lot of people worried about all that water that plant's going to use is coming right out of Lake Michigan. And I don't think there's a comprehensive plan to make sure that when that water gets back, it's treated properly, and what other things might be in it. So there's a lot of questions. I think our state really went out on a limb to bring Foxconn, and I think, my personal opinion, we probably would have been better off as a state if we were willing to spend that type of money to invest it back in companies that were already here, that were paying people a living wage, and to help them maintain themselves and be sustainable going into the future. That's what I think we should have done. Now, I'm sure there's other people have their own opinions. They're entitled to that. But I think it's a big risk that we took. It's going to be 20 to 25 years before we know if this gamble pays off. And by that time, the people that made the decisions more than likely aren't going to be around. So it's a tough call.
All right, well, thank you. Well, we'll continue our conversation with Mark Westphal, president of the Fox Valley Area Labor Council, when we come back.